The warning wasn't written. It was screamed into reality itself. Zhennai's claws trembled as she held the data shard, watching the holographic symbols writhe and reconstruct themselves in her vision field. The crystalline archives of Velthorum had stood for 9 million cycles, preserving the memory of 73 fallen civilizations. But this fragment predated them all. The protogalactic script was so ancient that her translation matrix kept glitching, offering interpretations that made her throat sacs constrict with instinctive dread. Beware the masked ones. They walk upright. They speak soft. They smile with flat teeth. They are the reason we are gone. The young Chixtar scholar's bioluminescent patterns flickered uncertainty across her translucent carapace. She was barely into her 3rd century, a child by her species standards, but she'd already earned her position in the archives through relentless curiosity and an unfortunate habit of ignoring boundaries. Put it back. The voice resonated from the shadows, each syllable carrying the weight of epochs. Korath emerged into the amber light, his ancient form hunched and crystalline, fragments of his carapace replaced with archive metal from centuries of service. The Velsharn archivist's 4 compound eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her want to molt from pure anxiety. Master Korath, this is forbidden knowledge. There are 17,793 classifications of data in these archives. That fragment carries the only one labeled existential quarantine. Korath's mandibles clicked in a pattern that indicated finality. The masked ones are myth, ghost stories told by extinct civilizations who blamed their failures on imaginary demons. But the mathematical consistency across unconnected cultures is coincidence dressed in paranoia. Korath moved closer, and Zhennai noticed something she'd never seen before: fear in her mentor's eyes. Child, I have curated these archives for 12,000 cycles. I have seen civilizations rise and fall. I have cataloged the deaths of gods. And I am telling you, with all the authority of my position and all the genuine affection I hold for your brilliant, reckless mind, do not pursue this. Zhennai should have listened. 3 solar rotations later, she was in the rust markets of Thexful Station, trying to hire a ship crew with funds she'd embezzled from the archive's restoration budget. The market sprawled through the hollowed-out corpse of a generation ship, its corridors thick with the smell of fusion oil and desperation. You want to go where? Drexfall laughed, his throat sacs inflating with amusement. The Kordak mercenary was 7 feet of scarred purple muscle, his species bred for war in an era when violence was more honest. The Dead Star Traverse? That's 40 systems of absolutely nothing, punctuated by radiation storms and gravitational anomalies that'll turn your ship into abstract art. I'll pay triple standard rates. The laughter stopped. Drexfall's predatory eyes, forward-facing, Zhennai noted with a chill, narrowed. What's out there worth that kind of currency? The last outpost of the masked ones. For a moment, the entire market seemed to fall silent. Then Drexfall leaned back and gestured to the other 2 beings at his table. You hear this? Little scholar wants to chase fairy tales. Talessa, a Valindri biosculptor whose iridescent skin shifted colors with her mood, tilted her elongated head. The humans? I've collected genetic samples from 11 extinct species who claim to have encountered them. The descriptions are always the same: bipedal, bilaterally symmetrical, persistence hunters with binocular vision, and opposable digits. Her tone was clinical, but her coloration flickered with fascination. If the masked ones were real, their DNA would be priceless. The 3rd member of their group hadn't spoken. Pip was a juvenile Canary, barely past his molting phase, his downy feathers still showing patches of adolescent blue. His species were prey animals who'd evolved intelligence as a survival mechanism, and right now, every survival instinct he possessed was screaming. No, he chirped, his translator struggling with his fear pitch. No, no, no. The apex wears many faces. That's what the old songs say. They wear the face of friends until you trust them. Then you see what's underneath. Songs aren't evidence, Zhennai said, though her own anxiety patterns were starting to show. Neither are fragments, Drexfall countered. But you've got my attention. Triple rates, full payment up front, and I want details. Zhennai interfaced her datapad with the table's hollow projector. The fragment's translation appeared in the air between them, and she watched their reactions carefully. Talessa leaned forward, entranced. Drexfall's expression hardened into something calculating. And Pip began to shake. The station's coordinates are embedded in the fragment, Zhennai explained. It's been broadcasting a low-frequency beacon for at least 3 million cycles. Nobody's investigated because it's classified as a hazard zone. Because the masked ones are there, Pip whispered. Waiting. Watching. The songs say they never truly leave. They just hide until you forget to be afraid. The Cubs got sense, Drexfall said, but sense doesn't buy ships. He extended a massive clawed hand. You've got a crew, scholar. Try not to get us killed by your fairy tale. The journey took 47 cycles, each one eating away at the crew's cohesion. Drexfall's ship, the Rust Prophet, was a cobbled-together mess of salvage parts and illegal modifications that somehow held vacuum. The mercenary spent most of his time in the pilot's nest, avoiding conversation. Talessa obsessively reviewed xenobiological data, her collection of extinct DNA samples spread across her quarters like trophies, and Pip barely left his sleeping pod, emerging only to eat and mutter prophecies from Canary death songs. Zhennai divided her time between the fragment and the growing sense that she'd made a catastrophic mistake. The Dead Star Traverse lived up to its reputation. They navigated through debris fields from civilizations that had tried and failed to colonize the region. Twice they detected other ships, derelicts, their crews gone in ways that left the hulls intact but the interior atmosphere thick with something that made their sensors malfunction. You seeing this? Drexfall's voice crackled through the comm system as they approached the coordinates. Station still got power. Active power. After 3 million cycles. The structure materialized on their view screen like a prophecy made solid. It was smaller than Zhennai had imagined, barely larger than a trading outpost, but its architecture was wrong in ways that hurt to perceive. Geometric patterns that suggested both organic growth and precise engineering, materials that their sensors couldn't identify, and at its center, a symbol that made Pip scream. That's the mark of the apex, the Canary shrieked, his feathers standing on end. The old ones carved it in warning stones. It means, here hunts the patient predator. It's just a glyph, Talessa said, but her colors had shifted to deep purple. Fear colors. Drexfall brought them in slowly. Weapons systems online despite the station showing no hostile intent. As they docked, their instruments started reporting impossible data. Breathable atmosphere, Talessa read, her voice hollow. Multiple types. It's cycling through different compositions every hour. Temperature regulated. Gravity at 1.2 standard. Drexfall's claws hovered over the weapons console. This station is maintaining itself. Or something's maintaining it, Pip whimpered. They suited up anyway. Nobody was stupid enough to trust readings from a station that shouldn't exist. Zhennai led the way through the airlock, her archive training kicking in as she documented everything. The interior was pristine. Dust should have been inches thick after millennia of abandonment, but the corridors gleamed like they'd been cleaned that morning. The walls were covered in languages, thousands of them. Some Zhennai recognized from dead cultures, others that predated galactic record-keeping, but they all said variations of the same thing. We were here. We tried to understand them. We failed. Run. Cheerful place, Drexfall muttered, his weapon raised. They moved deeper, following the station's central corridor. Pip stayed close to Zhennai, his translator picking up subharmonic sounds that made his species' threat detection biology spike. They're here, he kept whispering. I can feel them watching. Nobody's here, Talessa said, but she'd taken out her bioscanner and was sweeping constantly. The corridor opened into a massive chamber that stole Zhennai's breath. Cryogenic pods, hundreds of them, arranged in concentric circles around a central platform. Most were dark, their systems long dead, but her archive-trained eyes immediately identified the pattern. These weren't storage units. They were a garrison, a military deployment kept in stasis. What were they guarding against? Drexfall asked. Not guarding against, Talessa breathed, her scanner trembling in her grip. Guarding the galaxy from... Look at the pod configurations. They're designed for one-way suspension. These weren't soldiers meant to wake up. They were dangerous individuals being permanently contained. Zhennai moved between the pods, checking status displays. All dead. All except... The central pod hummed with active power. Don't, Pip pleaded. Please, Zhennai. Whatever's in there, it chose to sleep. Let it keep sleeping. But the scholar's curiosity was a fire that consumed caution. She approached the active pod, wiping away millennia of grime from its display panel. The biosigns were stable, strong. Whatever was inside had been maintained perfectly, waiting. The fragment said they were legends. Zhennai murmured, "What if this is proof? What if we could talk to one of them? What if it's proof that some things should stay buried?" Drexfall had moved to her side, weapon trained on the pod. Zhennai's claw hovered over the revival sequence. Every instinct she possessed screamed at her to stop, but she'd come too far, spent too much, risked too much. She activated the sequence. The pod's hum intensified. Crystalline ice began to sublimate away in wisps of vapor that caught the chamber's dim light. Through the clearing viewport, Zhennai saw a face, bilaterally symmetrical, as Talessa had described. Hair, dark and tied back. Skin that looked disturbingly soft, lacking any natural armor, and closed eyes that, even in suspended animation, somehow suggested awareness. The pod hissed open. The figure inside was female. At least that's what Zhennai's xenobiological training suggested. Shorter than Drexval but taller than herself, with a build that spoke of efficiency rather than specialization. She wore a simple gray uniform without insignia, and as the last of the suspension fog cleared, her eyes opened. They were brown, human normal brown, according to the fragment's descriptions. But there was nothing normal about the intelligence behind them. The woman's eyes swept the chamber in a microsecond, cataloging every detail, every threat, every escape route. Then they fixed on Zhennai with an intensity that made the young scholar want to molt her carapace and run. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then the woman spoke, her voice rough from disuse, in a language that predated galactic civilization itself. The sounds were sharp, efficient, utterly alien. When nobody responded, she tilted her head. Such a simple gesture, but it made Pip whimper, and spoke again, this time in perfect galactic standard, her accent suggesting she'd learned it from multiple sources and synthesized the optimal pronunciation. 2 words that changed everything. You shouldn't have come. Station defenses erupted to life. Bulkheads slammed down, sealing every exit. Red light bathed the chamber as ancient systems, dormant for epochs, responded to the awakening of their guardian. The woman was already moving, stepping out of her pod with the fluid grace of something that had never stopped being dangerous, even in sleep. Drexfall fired. The plasma bolt should have vaporized her. The woman simply wasn't there anymore. She'd moved, impossibly fast, and was standing 3 feet to the left, watching the bolt dissipate against the pod's shielding with an expression of mild disappointment. "Really?" she asked, her galactic standard inflected with something that might have been sarcasm. 3 million years in the freezer, and the first thing I see is someone shooting at me? The galaxy hasn't changed much. What are you? Talessa breathed, her scanner shrieking alarms. The woman looked at her, then at the scanner, then back at Talessa. A small smile crossed her face, flat teeth, just like the warning said, and Zhennai felt her survival instincts finally catch up to her curiosity. "I'm Ryn'vaeth," the woman said, "and you've just made the worst mistake of your civilization's existence." Part 2. They saw the predator beneath her skin. A cub spoke. Why does the apex wear a human mask? The station's lockdown held them in a cage of their own making, and the human, Ryn'vaeth, watched them with eyes that never stopped calculating. "Lower the weapon," she said to Drexfall, her tone carrying no threat, which somehow made it more threatening. "You've already proven it won't help." The Kordak mercenary's pride warred with his survival instinct. Survival won. He lowered the plasma rifle, but kept it ready. "Who are you, really?" Ryn'vaeth isn't a name. It's a Velsharn word meaning patient observer. The woman's smile widened slightly. Someone did their homework. "Yes, it's an alias. My real name wouldn't translate into anything your vocal apparatus could produce. And honestly, after 3 million years in ice, I'm not sure I remember how to pronounce it correctly anymore." She moved toward them with steps that were too measured, too controlled. "As for who I am, I'm the Watcher." The Guardian. The last one left behind to make sure nobody did exactly what you just did. We woke you, Zhennai said, fighting to keep her bioluminescence from broadcasting pure terror. We freed you from stasis. Why are we in danger? Ryn'vaeth stopped, cocking her head again in that unsettling way. You think you freed me? Sweet scholar. You activated a containment breach protocol. This station's AI is currently deciding whether to sterilize this entire sector or just this chamber. Telesa's scanner was still shrieking. Your physiology, it's impossible. Your muscle densities suggest you should move like a heavy world species, but your skeletal structure is optimized for endurance. Your brain-to-body ratio is terrifying, Ryn'vaeth supplied helpfully. That's the word most species use when they actually analyze human biology, instead of just collecting our DNA like trophies. She glanced at Telesa's sample collection, visible through her transparent equipment case. Nice collection, by the way. You've got Veldrathi, Chixtari protoforms, and, oh, is that Canary ancestral stock? How did you even get that? They incinerate their dead. Telesa's colors shifted to shame purple. You're avoiding the question, Drexaval growled. Why shouldn't we have come? Ryn'vaeth's expression sobered. Because humanity initiated the Great Silence for a reason. We realized, about 4 million years ago, that we had a problem. Every species we encountered, we outcompeted. Not through violence, though we were excellent at that too, but through something worse. We adapted faster, problem-solved better, built relationships more effectively. We were social apex predators in a galaxy full of prey, and we were winning so thoroughly that it was going to end in extinction. Not ours, everyone else's. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of the station's systems. So we left, Ryn'vaeth continued, walking around them in a slow circle that made Pip's feathers stand completely on end. Self-imposed quarantine. We went to sleep, most of us, in systems far from any viable civilization, and we left watchers, guardians like me, to ensure nobody came looking, to make sure the masked ones stayed legend. But the warnings, Zhennai said, the civilizations that went extinct weren't killed by us, Ryn'vaeth interrupted. They killed themselves, usually through war or ecological collapse or simple statistical bad luck. But it's easier to blame the boogeyman, isn't it? To say the masked ones destroyed us rather than admit you destroyed yourselves? She stopped in front of Zhennai. Although, to be fair, there were a few species who encountered humanity before the silence. We didn't kill them either. We just existed near them, traded with them, befriended them, and they couldn't compete with that. With us. Telesa was reviewing her scanner data with trembling hands. The readings say your body is constantly in a state of low-level stress response. Your adrenal system is overbuilt. Your nervous system processes threats at a rate that should cause constant sensory overload. How do you function? This is our baseline, Ryn'vaeth said simply. We evolved on a death world. Everything on Earth wanted to kill us, so we evolved to be constantly ready. Fight or flight became fight and flight. We can run for days, fight for hours, and still have enough cognitive capacity left over to plan tomorrow's strategy. She looked at her hands, flexing fingers with an efficiency of motion that seemed choreographed. We're not stronger than most species. We're not faster, but we're stubborn, creative, and we never, ever stop. The apex wears many faces, Pip whispered, his voice breaking. That's what the old songs mean. You wear the mask of friendship, of peace, but underneath, we're still predators. Ryn'vaeth finished gently. But here's what your songs got wrong, little one. The mask isn't a disguise. The friendship is real. The desire for peace is genuine. That's what makes us dangerous. We don't want to hurt you. We want to help you. And in helping you, we'd replace you. Drexval's combat instincts were warring with fascination. You're saying humanity chose exile over conquest? We chose exile over genocide. Not ours. Yours. All of yours. Ryn'vaeth gestured around the chamber at the dead cryo-pods. Everyone in these pods volunteered to sleep forever. Warriors, yes, but also teachers, engineers, artists. The best of us. The worst of us. All of us too dangerous to coexist with the galaxy. She moved to a control console, her fingers dancing across interfaces that should have required specialized training. The station AI is named Carthage. It's been running scenarios since you arrived. Current calculation, 93% probability that your presence here represents a catastrophic breach of the silence protocols. What happens at 95%? Zhennai asked, though she suspected she knew. Carthage detonates the station's core and sterilizes this sector. No survivors, no evidence. The masked ones stay buried. Ryn'vaeth's voice was steady, but Zhennai noticed her jaw muscles tensing. Currently at 94.2% and climbing. Can you stop it? Talessa demanded. Probably. The question is whether I should. Ryn'vaeth turned to face them fully. And for the first time, Zhennai saw genuine conflict in those predator eyes. You woke me up. You violated a quarantine that was designed to protect you. And now you know the truth, that humans are real, that we're out here, that we chose to hide rather than dominate. What happens when you leave, when you tell others, when curiosity spreads and more expeditions come? We won't tell anyone, Drexval said immediately. Ryn'vaeth laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Of course you'll tell. Humans would tell. We're storytellers, gossips, social creatures who can't keep secrets because sharing information is survival. She gestured at Zhennai. She's a scholar. Knowledge is literally her species' purpose. She'll tell. I won't, Zhennai insisted, even as she knew it was a lie. Yes, you will. Because you're curious. Because you want to understand. Because staying silent about the greatest discovery in galactic history would kill you from the inside. Ryn'vaeth's expression softened slightly. I know, because I do the same thing. That's the problem with being human. We recognize ourselves in everyone else. The station shuddered. Carthage's voice emerged from speakers that hadn't functioned in epochs. Guardian Ryn'vaeth. Breach probability now, 94.8%. Recommend immediate termination of witnesses. Recommend you shut up and let me think. Ryn'vaeth snapped back. To the crew's surprise, the AI actually complied. Ryn'vaeth paced, and watching her move was like watching a predator in a cage. All controlled violence and barely restrained energy. Options, she muttered, apparently talking to herself. Option 1. Let Carthage sterilize the sector. Clean. Final. No survivors to spread the story. But I've been in the ice for 3 million years, and these 4 idiots are the first new faces I've seen, and I'm really not in the mood for more death. We appreciate that, Drexval said dryly. Option 2. Kill you all myself. More personal. Less collateral damage. But same problem. I'm tired of death. We went into the silence because we were tired of being the reason things died. She stopped pacing. Option 3. Let you go and hope you keep your mouth shut, which we've established won't happen. Option 4. She trailed off, staring at something none of them could see. Option 4? Zhennai prompted. Option 4 is stupid. Risky. Probably going to get me executed by whatever human authority eventually wakes up to check on me. Ryn'vaeth moved back to the console, her fingers already working. But it's the most human option, which means it's probably the right one. What are you doing? Talessa asked. Disabling the self-destruct, overriding Carthage's threat assessment, and buying us about 15 minutes before the backup systems kick in, and we're all vapor. Ryn'vaeth's hands moved faster than any of them could track. The console wasn't designed for human physiology, but she was adapting in real time, finding workarounds, exploiting system vulnerabilities that shouldn't exist. Guardian, this violates protocol, Carthage intoned. Add it to my file, Ryn'vaeth shot back. Right after failed to maintain proper sleep schedule and excessive use of sarcasm in crisis situations. Pip had been silent, but now he chirped quietly. Why are you saving us? Ryn'vaeth paused, just for a microsecond. But in that pause, Zhennai saw something that changed everything. Uncertainty, doubt, humanity. Because you were curious enough to find us, Ryn'vaeth said finally, and brave enough to wake me. Those are the traits we fear most in ourselves. The curiosity that won't quit. The bravery that borders on stupidity. Maybe, she returned to her work. Maybe you'll do better with those traits than we did. The station shuddered again. Sparks erupted from the console, but Ryn'vaeth didn't stop. She was improvising now, rerouting power, physically tearing out circuit boards and rewiring them with tools she improvised from the environment. It was chaos made purposeful, problem solving elevated to art. There, she slammed a final connection home, and the red alert lighting shifted to amber. Self-destruct disabled. Backup systems isolated. Carthage is now officially in timeout. This is a violation of... The AI began. I know, Ryn'vaeth interrupted. Log it under Guardian made poor life choices due to excessive isolation and mounting existential dread. She turned to the crew. You need to leave. Now. What about you? Zhennai asked. I'm going to destroy the beacon, make sure no one else can find this place, and then go back to sleep. Maybe in another 1,000,000 years, the galaxy will be ready for us. Maybe not. Either way, it's not my decision anymore. Come with us, Talessa blurted. The biosculptor's colors had shifted to invitation green. You could help us, teach us. And there it is, Ryn'vaeth said with a sad smile. The exact problem we were trying to avoid. You meet one human, and already you're thinking about how we could improve your civilization, how our knowledge could advance your species, how our friendship could benefit you. She shook her head. That's not malice on your part. It's not even wrong, but it's how it starts. Human exceptionalism, even when we don't want it. Drexcival's weapon was fully lowered now. You're choosing to stay behind. I'm choosing to maintain the silence. Someone has to. Ryn'vaeth moved to a secondary console and began inputting commands. I'm encrypting a message into your ship's database. Instructions, warnings, the truth about humanity, all of it. Not the legend, the reality. Our strengths, our weaknesses, our history of both brilliance and horror. Consider it insurance. Against what? Zhennai asked. Against the day when curiosity wins and someone else comes looking. When that happens, at least they'll know what they're dealing with. The console chimed completion. The data is locked to activate only if you try to publicize any information about this mission. If you stay silent, it stays hidden. If you talk, the full truth comes out. And trust me, the full truth about humanity is a lot less romantic than the legends. The station's deck plates were vibrating now, a rhythmic pattern that suggested something charging up. That's the beacon's self-destruct, Ryn'vaeth explained. I've got about 3 minutes before this section becomes uninhabitable. You've got 2 minutes to be off this station before the blast could damage your ship. I'd suggest using both efficiently. Pip hopped forward, his small frame trembling. Why does the Apex wear a HumanMask? He asked, repeating the question his songs had taught him to fear. Ryn'vaeth knelt down to his level, a gesture that made her vulnerability clear, and said gently, because the Apex learned that the scariest face we could wear was the one that looked friendly, the one that made you forget we were dangerous until you were already part of our pack. She reached out slowly, letting Pip see the motion, and gently touched his downy feathers. But we also learned that maybe, sometimes, the mask becomes the face, that the predator can choose to be something else. Can it? Pip whispered. I don't know, little one. I've been asleep a long time. Maybe you'll figure it out for us. She stood. Now go. Before I change my mind and decide Carthage was right. They ran. Through corridors that were already beginning to glow with dangerous heat buildup. Past walls covered in warnings from the dead. Through the airlock and into the Rust Prophet, where Drexcival's claws danced across the piloting controls with desperate speed. The ship detached just as the station's beacon section erupted in a contained fusion bloom. The shockwave caught them, but Drexcival was already burning thrust at maximum, riding the explosion like a wave. Behind them, the station grew smaller. The chamber where Ryn'vaeth remained was still intact, still powered. Through the viewport, as they pulled away, Zhennai thought she saw a figure standing at an observation port, watching them leave. Then the station's external lights died, one by one, until only the cryochamber remained active. A single bright spot in the void, maintaining its vigil. They didn't speak for 3 full cycles. Finally, as they cleared the Dead Star Traverse, Drexcival broke the silence. What do we do? Zhennai pulled up the encrypted file Ryn'vaeth had hidden in their database. The security was beyond anything she'd ever seen. Quantum locked, biometrically sealed, and flagged to activate only under specific conditions. We do what she asked. We stay silent. You're a scholar, Talessa said quietly. Silence will destroy you. Then it destroys me. Zhennai's bioluminescence pulsed with resignation. She was right. If we tell, more will come, and eventually someone will wake them all up. The galaxy isn't ready for that. Will it ever be? Drexval asked. Nobody had an answer. Pip, who had been silent since leaving the station, finally spoke. I saw her choose mercy. The Apex could have killed us. Should have, to keep her secret, but she chose mercy. His feathers ruffled. The old songs say the masked ones are death incarnate. But I think maybe the mask is there so we don't see the predator trying to be more than its nature. That's terrifying in a completely different way, Talessa murmured. Yes, Pip agreed. But also hopeful. They made it back to civilization without incident. Zhennai returned the embezzled funds to the archive's restoration budget. Drexval took his payment and disappeared into the rust markets. Talessa added nothing to her collection and spoke to no one about her scanner readings, and Pip sang new songs to his clutchmates, songs about the Apex who wore mercy like a mask, and how maybe the scariest predators were the ones who chose not to hunt. 3 cycles after their return, Zhennai received an anonymous message on a frequency that shouldn't have been able to reach her terminal. No source, no signature, just text. Thank you for staying silent. For what it's worth, you would have made excellent humans. That's both a compliment and an apology. Maybe in another age, we can be friends, without one of us disappearing. Until then, keep asking questions. Just maybe not about us. R. Zhennai deleted the message, erased the logs, and purged the buffer. Then she returned to the crystalline archives, where Korath waited with knowing eyes. You went, the old archivist said. It wasn't a question. I went, and Zhennai's bioluminescence flickered with complex emotions she didn't have patterns to express. And I learned that some legends should stay legends, that some knowledge protects by remaining unknown, that curiosity without wisdom is just another form of extinction. Korath's mandibles clicked in approval. What will you do with this wisdom? I'll catalog it under existential quarantine, Zhennai said, right next to the fragment that started this, and I'll make sure the classification stays in place. Some things should stay buried. Even from scholars? Especially from scholars. We're the ones most likely to dig up what should stay sleeping. Korath made a sound that might have been ancient laughter. You've learned more in 3 cycles than most learn in 3 centuries. Perhaps there's hope for your generation after all. That night, Zhennai stood at her observation port, staring out at the stars. Somewhere out there, in systems carefully hidden from curious eyes, humanity slept. The masked ones, the apex predators, the social hunters who'd chosen exile over dominance, and one of them stood vigil, alone in the void, maintaining a silence that protected a galaxy too young to understand what it had been spared from. Pip's question echoed in her mind. Why does the apex wear a human mask? She finally understood the answer, because underneath the mask of friendship and mercy and compassion, there was something that could choose to be all those things despite its nature. The mask wasn't a disguise, it was an aspiration, a predator trying to become something better than its instincts demanded. And that, Zhennai realized, was the most terrifying thing of all. Not the predator that hunts, but the predator that chooses not to.